Hello and welcome to a brief lecture on the principles of division and classification. First, a little bit about the background for this assignment. So this is Unit 2, and the name of this unit, title of this unit, is writing about others. So we begin by writing about ourselves and then writing about others. Now this is still a familiar topic, and in fact I say right here that we're still obeying the old adage to write what we know about. We certainly started with that, writing about ourselves. There's nothing about which you are more expert than yourself. But we also tend to know a lot about other people. And that makes this, I think, a comfortable sort of topic for you to have to write about for the second essay. Hopefully you've had time at this point to read the two readings for this unit, The Ways We Lie and College Pressures. Both those are excellent examples of how division and classification essays work. So if you haven't read those yet, please make sure to do so. All right, so what is division and classification? It's a very simple process. It's kind of scientific in nature. Division, the way we understand it, means that you're taking a whole, some whole entity, and you're dividing it into groups. Now, we're going to focus on types of people, but there's no reason why you couldn't apply this to all different kinds of topics. Say, school subjects can be broken into different types of groups. Just real quickly, let's think about that. School subjects. So you have math, English, science, so on and so forth. What if you could take those and try to think of some principle by which you could break them into different groups? How about there are very difficult subjects, very easy subjects, and fun subjects, or something like that, right? And then it just gives us a new way to understand relationships between those different parts. So classification then is exemplifying those groups, explaining to the reader the characteristics and giving examples of how those groups work. All right, so our assignment again is for types of people, and so you need to think about all the different possibilities here. There are so many of them. Just for example, real quickly, here are several I've thought of: teachers, students, bosses, friends, customers, parents. These are all things that are pretty familiar to us so far. People we live with, people that we're around. But, you know, it could be people that we just observe, too, from afar sometimes, like celebrities, athletes. Enemies is just sort of a strange one. Again, that one's sort of personal. And drivers is another one I think is interesting because we all have so much experience with other drivers and a lot of feelings and ideas about how we view other drivers. Customers is one that comes up a lot in student papers simply because I think a lot of college-age students tend to have had jobs, especially in the food service industry, working in a drive-through or waiting tables or something like that. And those of you who have had those jobs know that there's a lot of inherent frustrations and strangeness to that in the way you deal with or interact with other human beings who are irate with you because you can't give them another ranch sauce for free or something like that. So anyway, think about all the possibilities. That's certainly just the tip of the iceberg because it's again it's people, and so the sky's the limit in terms of types of topics you might even consider. All right, so let's just dive right into the organizational strategy for the division and classification essay. One thing I want to point out right from the beginning is that unlike the first essay, the second essay must be written in third person. It means no I, me, we, us. All of those should be traded out for third person pronouns, he, she, and they. All right, so in the introduction to your division and classification essay, the very first thing you're going to have to think about here is what is your principle for division? Let me back up. The very first thing you have to figure out is what group of people am I going to divide and classify? Once you figure that out, then you have to try to determine a principle for division. Let me jump over here to my example topic so that this will make more sense in context. So the one I like to do just for this exercise is types of high school cliques. It's familiar to everybody in here in this class because everybody's gone to high school, so you should understand this. Now, of course, I haven't been to high school in over 20 years, so my list here certainly is not all-inclusive, but it's just to give us a general idea anyway. So I came up with jocks, preps, posers, punks, band geeks, nerds, goths, hippies, and hipsters. And so I need a principle for division. There can be lots of different ways that we break down high school students, but I thought, well, the thing that seems to be thing that seems obvious here, the principle, will be that I'm going to divide them based upon levels of social popularity. All right, so that is what you're trying to come up with then for your thesis statement. So within your introduction and the thesis statement, there are three things you have to do. You state the original entity, high school cliques. You provide your division principle. I'm going to divide them based upon social popularity. And then you preview the categories. That's basically just listing them within your thesis, popular, unpopular, and in between. To the extent that whatever you come up with here for your division principle can be something original, I think that will really benefit the overall quality of your essay. So, try to think a little bit, about pushing yourself to find a division principle that is maybe unique, something people haven't thought of before. Anything you can do along those lines, I think, will help you out. So again, just to review in your introduction for your thesis statement, which, again, a lot of people did struggle with thesis statements in the first essay. Let me just remind you that most frequently a thesis statement is going to be like the last sentence of an introduction, okay? So in that thesis statement, you state the original entity, you give your principle for division, and you preview the categories. The body then is pretty straightforward. In this case, I've created three categories. I need to decide which order those are going to go in within the essay, but then I'm just going to go through each one. I'm going to clearly define them and provide ample examples for each one. So I actually think that the order in which I have these up here right now will be the order I'm going to put them in body paragraphs within my essay as well. Simply because I think popular and unpopular will be the most obvious ones. In between will be a little more complicated, and it might be better to lead up to that rather than to begin with that. So in thinking about the divisions you come up with, if there are ones that are more obvious, maybe start with those, move towards the ones that might be a little harder to explain or more complex. So part of what I would need to do now is determine, okay, which of these groups go into these master groups. So, I don't know, I'll put jocks and preps in the popular, and I'll put posers and goths and punks, say, in the unpopular. I'll put band geeks, nerds, hippies, and hipsters in the in-between group. And maybe you're sitting there taking issue with the way I'm doing this right now, but you get the basic idea here. Now, it could be that when you create your division principle and you start, really looking at how you're going to do this, that what you have, here I've had all these different examples, but it could be more that you're really just defining characteristics of people who would be in one of these divisions, okay? You might not have this whole list of specific examples like that. Remember from the first essay that I did recommend that as a strategy always for conclusions that you try to save something. In this case, I think there'll be sort of an obvious thing that you haven't gotten to by the time you get through your categories, and that's areas of overlap and or comparisons between the groups. So obviously, all of this is fraught with exceptions, right? I'm sure you realize that. Not all punks are unpopular. Not all jocks are popular. So you could address that, and then you could also talk about, maybe some of the obvious examples that tend to overlap or could end up in different types of, or in different groups, different divisions. So that gives you sort of a concrete task to perform within the conclusion, which I always think is helpful. All right, that's it for division and classification. It's a fairly straightforward and simple operation. I think you'll agree after seeing that. Sort of a fancy and imposing title in a way, but the actual tasks at hand are fairly logical and easy to complete. So as always, please let me know if you have any questions, and good luck. Thank you.